So what you see when you go to the market is expensive food items, tomato, yam, and the list goes on and on. Those are, well, the things you see. But have you ever thought, what is responsible for this? What is responsible for the high prices? Aside subsidy removal and the rest, there are deeper issues that are also responsible for the high cost of food items. One, farmers aren't going to the farms in some areas that are known for farming and food production. One of those major areas in Nigeria is Benue State. It's actually called the food basket of the nation. There's a major yam market. It's said to be the biggest around, the Zakibiam yam market. It's not what it used to be. And that's as a result of a deeper issue which ties to insecurity. And this onslaught, as it has been described, has been on in Benue State, rather, for quite some time. So this morning, we're not just looking at the symptoms. We're going deeper and finding out what exactly is wrong. And hopefully, we can find solutions to this. So when you go to the market to buy yam, at least you get it for a cheaper price. This morning, we have joining us on the program as we take a look at the situation in Benue State, the program's manager of Amnesty International, Barbara Magaji. And right next to her is Undersay Veshima, who's a pioneer DG, Benue State Bureau for International Cooperation and Development. Both join us virtually on the program. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning.
Well, I was looking at figures, and it's quite disheartening what is playing out in Benue State. Between January 2023 and February 2024, over 2,600 persons, mostly children and women, were murdered in over 50 communities. Now, that is February, just space of 4 or so months ago. We don't know what that figure is right now. So I'm going to begin with you, Madam Barbara Magaji, because AI has been given updates on the situation in Benue State. So give us the update first regarding the attacks and the killings. We had some just a few days ago. So bring us at least the latest update in terms of the attacks, and then we'll get into the reasons why we're seeing these attacks and then the solutions.
Thank you so much. So the work that Amnesty did, we documented the attacks from last year, sometime around November, up till the first quarter of this year. And what we did was to document the different attacks that take place in different local governments. And what we noticed was that there were different reasons, and our focus was to basically understand the nature of the situation of internal displaced persons in Benue State. And that's how we got these figures. And like you said, it's just within the first quarter of the year. I mean, 2,600 people in over 135 attacks. Most of those people were women and children. And as you know, when conflicts happen, the victims and those who suffer most are women and children, because in our society, they are not sometimes armed to protect themselves. So, and you find them a lot in those displacement camps across different local governments. We had about 18 local governments that had that. I am aware, and in the course of our work, after we released our findings, Benue State government had told us some movements are taking place where IDPs are being resettled into their communities. However, as at the time we documented, we had these 18 local governments with these attacks. And then we had 21 official camps as at that time. Some of them, of course, organized, some not organized, with different issues that are taking place. So, for instance, you have, like you mentioned, issues of food insecurity, a concern. In one of the camps we went to, what we saw were women would go to marketplaces where grains, I would call it wasted grains, quote and unquote, wasted grains. For instance, beans, they would pack it from the floor, sort out the dirt out of it, and then use the beans to feed themselves in the camps. I mean, for us, that's a real economic and social-cultural rights violation. These are people that are already violated by their rights, first to stay comfortably in their communities, but they're unable to. And then when they come to the camps, they don't even have a means of livelihood. Some of the camps were a thing of concern. So for instance, you had camps that didn't even have water systems, while some had boreholes, some didn't have at all. Some, the sanitary conditions were appalling, a thing of concern. So levels and layers of violations. First, their civil and political rights, which includes their rights to life, their rights to exist wherever they are. Then they move into displacement situations, whether in host communities or in created IDP camps. And then further violations occur. For instance, like I said, the economic and social-cultural rights issues.
Right.
You have even the sanitary situations, not so palatable. In some places, people have to run shifts to get into toilets for the purpose of, so that they can use it. I mean, use of toilet is a right. You have to be comfortable. Your digestive system has to be comfortable. Then, of course, as you can see, you have lots of women and children. We had lactating mothers in the camps. In only one camp did we see a constructed health clinic assisted by one of the donors or set up by one of the donors, so people could get some of those services. So you can imagine the layers of problems. You would definitely have health issues. You would have, like I said, food-related issues. And then, of course, the insecurity has not abated. Things are still happening.
Well,
we have, at the moment, documented the ones currently ongoing. We're still collating information around that.
And I shudder to think the figures that will come out of this. Just barely days ago, we had yet another attack in Katsina Ala, and we've recorded other attacks as well. So let me come to Mr. Ondese Veshima on this one. For some people who are watching right now, there's a tendency to think, oh, this is just happening in Benue State. Thank goodness I'm here in my state and I'm not feeling it. But we've tried to show that there is actually a link between the food insecurity we're experiencing, the high cost of food items, and the insecurity in Benue State and some other parts of the country, because they're responsible for producing food. So if the figure says 400,000 people, in fact, the governor was quoted as saying that 400,000 people are in IDP camps, so there are 400,000 IDPs. 18 out of 23 local government areas are being attacked. That's literally 80%. That's pretty much all of the state at this point. Maybe we should start with, what is the cause? Who is responsible for this? I imagine that at least the government has an inkling or an insight into that.
Well, I think, thank you so much for the opportunity. The question as to who is responsible for the attacks might be a question that would also mean that we're underestimating what the issues are, because it's not a question of who particularly is responsible for the attacks. The conflict in Benue State has experienced over the last decade has been multifaceted. The conflict has been driven by different factors. There are conflicts driven, first of all, to understand the fact that the humanitarian situation in Benue State is driven by different factors. The factor of conflict itself, which is both armed conflicts and armed conflict being internal or intra-armed conflicts, inter-armed conflicts, armed conflict between farmer herders, armed conflict between with outright banditry, outright criminality, and then of course the humanitarian situation is also driven by some natural disaster, where even very recently there were flooding experiences on part of the state. The humanitarian situation, as it were, is a complex problem that had bedeviled the state over a period of time. This administration had come in, and one of the first things that it recognized was the fact that there was no significant coverage or context that someone would sit and say, authoritatively, this is what the humanitarian situation in Benue is. So right now, this government earlier in the year had launched, working with a partner, Save the Children, had launched the humanitarian, that is a Benue State multi-sectoral needs assessment. That assessment is ongoing right now, and that assessment is supposed to enable us understand the remote and near causes of what the conflicts have been and what our humanitarian situation in the state is. Now, once that report is out, we'll be publishing it, and I'm very sure that everyone will have a look at that. But looking at it, the overview of the whole conversation is that we have conflicts that are driven by intracommunal conflicts. We have intercommunal conflicts. We have outright banditry, which I like to refer to as terrorism. People just coming into communities with no certain justification, attacking and maiming people, molesting women and girls, and forcing them to be displaced in their communities for various reasons. But in the end, we also understand the scarce environmental needs, the impact of climate change that we see that's also causing or driving the conflict between farmers and herders. And that's also a serious one that had bedeviled the state for quite a long time. But if you notice, since the beginning of this administration, there has been a huge reduction in that sort of conflict. But we experience a lot of banditry across the state in some quarters. Basically. So we can't sit and say, okay, this is who is responsible for the conflict, that is who is responsible. The security authorities might have the information, but right now, as sitting here, what I can tell you what are the factors that have led to some of these conflicts.
All right, Mr. Vershima, the issue of this crisis on the Benue is not new. In the 23 local government areas, whether in the Tiv area of 14 or in the Domagede area of 9 local government areas. So it's almost not tenable to say we don't know the cause. Because if a conflict has lasted this long, I don't think knowing the cause or the drivers is a problem. I think the issue is the will. Don't you agree that the will to do the right thing is actually the problem? If something has lasted for as long as 10 years, if you do your diagnostics, it's difficult to say, I'm still trying to find out what it is.
Okay, I agree with you totally that at this point, we should be able to have those. But those are information that probably I need to have scientific proof, and that's what the Benue State Multi-Sectoral Needs Assessment will pull out. But I tell you what, in terms of what administratively we're doing, I can assure you that this government, since its inception, has applied both kinetic and non-kinetic means of resolving this, which is the reason why we, as a government, have developed a durable solutions framework. Now, the durable solutions framework is aimed at addressing most of the predisposing factors that would lead to most of these conflicts, hence bringing about development in most of these communities that we see. One of the key things we recognized was the issue of security agents not responding very swiftly to the crimes or to these banditry attacks. The governor has swung into action. He has procured operational vehicles for the security for the Nigerian police in the state, which was distributed very recently, about 23 of them or so. And that had been distributed across the various local governments. That's number one. The governor recognizes that if he distributes vehicles, there's a need for roads to be constructed. And that's why the governor has embarked. During his time tour, the governor launched one of the biggest road construction projects across the state. Now is to say that across where these bandits or where these criminals used to attack, and we're using maybe motorbikes and all of that, and then the security forces were not able to reach them very fast. The governor has made sure that there are roads construction going on right now. If you come to Benue State, you will see that the entire state is a construction site. There's roads.
All right, Mr. Vershima, if I may butt in, my apologies. We appreciate the efforts of the government, but what we're looking at is results. We're big on results. We commend whatever effort is going on, but people are being killed. The numbers tell for itself. So whatever is being done and those numbers keep rising, it doesn't make any difference, no matter the effort being done. So let's take it to Mrs. Magaji on this one. What is government failing at, in your view, as far as the view of Amnesty International is concerned? Because there's a failure of government, whether at the federal or the state level,
just like I told Mr. Bashima, that coming up with the issue of what she's trying to find out is not tenable. You cannot be finding out now. So what are they failing at?
I mean, for us, the first thing is a lot of these conflicts have been there, like you said, for over 10 years. If you look at the North Central, the two states that have been affected most, you would say it's Plateau and Benue. You also see banditry also happening in Niger State. But if you just mirror into Plateau and Benue State, you realize that for us, the concern is the killings have continued, the displacements have continued, and further violations, so issues around sexual violence, even continues in IDP camps. So the concern is, haven't perpetrators, not even one, haven't at least one or two or a group been arrested and then prosecuted, and then some found guilty, and then if found guilty, sentenced, at least to a little extent, that can maybe serve as deterrence for others. So for us, the issue is, who are those people that are perpetrating these acts, and yet nothing is being done? And I mean, nothing in the sense of, like you said, result is what we're looking for. At least to see that some certain people have been prosecuted from the beginning to the end. Is it also possible that the lack of addressing it is also encouraging others to continue? Initially, we thought it was just terrorism, but we're now seeing banditry and kidnappings in the whole country, not even the North Central alone. Like you also mentioned earlier on, the issue of food insecurity, it's affected not in most of the state. The Middle Belt is known as a fertile place where food is produced. During the Christmas attacks in Plateau State, for instance, the fact that the attacks were done in two local governments that produce potatoes, Irish potatoes, it affected the supply in the market. And then, of course, we now know the prices went high. So there are different things that are happening. And I think for us, the concern is violations keep on occurring. We hear the statements of government is on top of the situation. And for citizens, on top of the situation is more than militarization, and addressing it kinetically is good, but also ensuring that those who are found or suspected to have been caught up in the act are actually taken through the criminal justice process fairly, and then something is done. How many have we seen? We haven't seen that. Secondly, what is also done with the community? Is the community also part of the process of ensuring that the place is secure? Talking maybe in the sense of community policing, ensuring the community participates in the process. I think that's the basic thing. And then it, of course, emboldens others to continue. There's a sense of impunity. If it is not addressed, I know I'm not going to be caught. The next person is encouraged by that act, and then the person also perpetrates such violations. So I think that's the major concern. And then it keeps on multiplying. And then we keep on. So for instance, the children we've seen here, children of under 5 are like, a lot of them are affected by these conflicts. And you have under 5s who grow up in communities that are known mostly with conflicts. All they know is sounds of guns, attacks, you're running, you're not properly educated, and you're a child that is supposed to enjoy rights given by your country. So there are lots of issues if this is not addressed. I think there is need for collective approach by all arms of government. So whether you are part of this executive with the security, but also ensuring that the judicial process takes place for those who are found guilty.
It's a stark reality that you paint there, Mrs. Magaji. I'm going to bring a similar question to you, Mr. Bashima. And, you said earlier on that it is beyond farmers and herders clashes. And that's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about the security concerns in Benue. But you have also identified criminality, banditry. So within the context of that challenge, as far as Benue security is concerned, what is the end game? And how do you tie this with the view expressed by the people that this is all about land displacement? And similarly, about government's inability to tackle this. The Commissioner for Information has been quoted as saying that the bandits are not being fair to the government, that there were negotiations ahead of the elections, that if the current governor won the election, then the amnesty will be guaranteed, and that has not been done. And as a result, everyone that holds an event that seems to be loyal to the governor, that place will be attacked. So within the context of that, do you also sense a seeming helplessness on the part of government to provide deterrence measures to tackle this?
Well, thank you. The thing is, when you discuss security, I like from my friend earlier, when we discuss security and you talk about the results, and you want results, and you want results. It's fantastic that we want results. Security, insecurity conversations are systemic. It's a systemic conversation, and you need to put measures in place that strengthen that particular system for us to get the results we're looking for. Now, recall also, and this is while not trying to trade blames, that the insecurity in Benue had protracted over a period, and the audacity of operation had been built over the period. The modus operandi of both the non-state actors has evolved over time, and the coming of the administration is beginning to learn to study the different modalities to addressing this. And there's the absolute political will. Number one, in terms of political will, number one, the governor, beyond having the special advisor on security, the governor has a special advisor on security and internal security and external security. Just this week, the governor has also established the Bureau of Homeland Security. Now, these agencies are all built to support both the kinetic and non-kinetic modalities that the government intends to use in addressing these insecurities. Now, the first thing is when you look at the issue around former headers, the issue around former headers is driven by whether we want to say it in the scientific way to say is that is a climate change is an outcome of the climate change problem we experience in this country, where the herders are looking for where to give their cattle water, and the farmers want their farmlands to be secured, and then people meet and clash. We used to have we've always had farmers and herders have disputes, and there were ways to resolving it. What this government has done is provide transparency in how we resolve those conflicts. Before now, the anti-grazing and the anti-grazing and the ranching policy that the state government had put in place was not honestly being implemented according to some of the people who were driving the conflict. But since this government came into power, what we've ensured we did was we made sure if you ranch, if you graze openly, it's a violation of the law that is in place. So your cattle are picked, and we have a team who looks at what was picked. If the government took 10 cows, if the government seized 10 cows from you, by the time you pay your fine or you go through the judicial process and your fine or whatever punitive measures are given onto you, you pay, and the same 10 cows are returned back to you. What we used to experience at some point in the life of Benue State was that 10 cows will be taken away from you, and when the cows are being returned, maybe you return 7 or you return 5. I'm just giving an example. And that was an issue in itself. And that was where we began to see reprisals happening. And that's why in the areas of farmer herders, we would say that those conflicts are not happening, but the amount, it has reduced to the barest minimum. What we've experienced in Benue State most recently has been these incidences of banditry and outright criminality. Now, in that wise, you remember that for banditry and outright criminality, there is a gain beyond an ideal that people are pursuing. And that gain there is a gain driven by a reward that has already been established. It's just the same way the menace of armed robbery ravages our country, and it's every day we keep getting people being arrested for armed robbery. We are not saying that the government's efforts in all of this, one, is systemic. And as a system, we're building a system where in the end, we will be able to holistically address this. Livelihoods are being returned, I can assure you. The IDPs, as at now, with the IOM DTM biometrics that is going on in the IDP camp, we're barely exceeding 200,000 inhabitants of the camps. That is because most of the people in these IDP camps have found their ways back to their ancestral homes, where they have returned to farming. And that is why, with the federal government interventions that are coming into the state, like the recent supply of fertilizers, assisted intervention that have been given to the state in terms of this fertilizer. Where do you think we're sending them to? Most of the people who are benefiting from this are people who were forcibly displaced from their home, who have gone back to their home to be able to farm, and hopefully we'll be able to improve on the yield.
Mr. Vyashima, I was hoping that you would address the real question, which is, what has been also observed by Madam Magaji. Why have those measures that the government is putting in place not producing arrest prosecution that will serve as a deterrence? It's seeming like the government is helpless in the light of the circumstances.
The government is not helpless. The government is not helpless. The term helpless might not be absolutely correct. The government's efforts in this regard, like I said, there have been recently working in collaboration with the army here within the state. There have been dislodgements of some of these criminal elements in their hideouts, and most of your media team have been out there working with the security agencies that are out there. The state government had just launched rebranded and re-energized its local securities that work hand in hand with the military and of course the conventional forces to aid the dislodgement of these bandits in most of their camps. Now, sometimes it's outright elimination. Sometimes it's outright arrest. And the arrests, most of them who are arrested are brought to the force headquarters here and are being prosecuted as we speak. I remember that the other, series of kidnappings that have happened here, we've also had the gallant men of the Nigerian police force have gone there to either rescue or return the people back to their places and arrested the people consequently. But I can assure you that the army here, led by very gallant people here, have also visited some of these camps where these bandits operate, and and there have been records basically of dislodgements of some of these bandits. I can assure you of that.
Let's wind down with this one.
To come also to say there are strategies that have been put in place. Like I said, they are systemic. And if I say that if we might not be able to reveal some of them on camera, but I can assure you that there have been results, especially under the government of Governor Hyacinth earlier.
Let me take this to Mrs. Magaji as we wind down in just about a minute. Remember in 2020, Ghana was killed. Was described as a terrorist kingpin. It was killed by the military, and a lot of people were thinking, okay, that would at least resolve the issues. But if there's anything we've seen things spiking, the situation aggravated as a result of that. So while Mr. Undersay says that essentially this is not just a farmer-herder issue, that there are other underlying issues, perhaps he's pointing to that, those whom the government now describes as bandits and terrorists. But my question to you is quite simple. So is there an end in sight for you, seeing all of the things he has said, things government is doing, all of those provisions, community policing, the military and the rest? Do you see an end in sight in the nearest future? For you, what is missing as we wind down?
For us is, as much as the efforts of government is being done or put in place, so long as we see a reduction in some of these atrocities and optimally an end to them, or an organization that pushes for rights, promotion of human rights, if these issues are addressed, that will be the end for us. But so long as the violations continue, we keep talking. We are concerned so long as human rights are violated, whatever the form of human rights. If government is addressing whatever way and is improving and helping with deterrence, we would be, pleased. Importantly, lives will not be lost. But if we continue to see that, we'll continue to draw government's attention to it. We'll continue to emphasize that it is the responsibility of government to ensure security and welfare of its citizens. So long as that is not done, then we would keep on doing the needful, calling the attention of government and ensuring that they address it.
Right. Well, we'll also keep asking the questions, but we have to anchor at this point. I would like to thank you so much, Barbara Magaji, Programs Manager Amnesty International, as well as Mr. Underse Veshima, Pioneer DG, Benue State Bureau for International Cooperation and Development. We hope next time we have this conversation, we're talking about improvement in security in Benue State. But thank you so much once again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll talk about the bigger picture, the national issues now. Yes, we focus on what's happening in Benue State, how it's impacting on the national issues, but let's aggregate all of the issues now and take a look at the economy. That's in just a few seconds. Stay with us right here.